وأنا من حسين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All praise is due to Him. We constantly glorify Him with this naqis and sinful tongue of ours. He continues and continues to bless us with ni'mat and blessing upon blessing. And one of the most sacred blessings that we have is this institution of Azadari. We are grateful to him to give us yet again an opportunity to understand Imam Hussein's mission, study his mission, grieve over his mission, in the process purify the hearts and reset our purpose, understand where we're supposed to be heading. The ISIJ of Toronto to give me this opportunity to address all of you, the mu'mineen, during these crucial first 10 to 12 days of Muharram. In my opening lecture tonight, as you are accustomed to me and the way that I speak, I want to address this unique Muharram this year, this COVID-19 Muharram. Speak a little bit about the aql, inshallah the content for the topic that Brother Akil had mentioned, understanding or a discussion on social justice. Inshallah we'll begin that content tomorrow. But tonight what I want to do is, I want to speak a little bit about this unique Muharram. I have been getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of messages in my conversations with various people in my family. It's becoming a challenge now to somehow process this Muharram. And, discussions that I've heard, like what will happen to Azadari, where will we go from here, for example? Are we going to be able to somehow salvage the etiquette and adab that Muharram brings with it? And no doubt, this is a very, very unique time, one that I have personally never faced in my life. 2 years ago, 2018, on this very minbar, on this very first night of Muharram, I was in this beautiful masjid. And in front of me, 2 years ago, this entire masjid that I'm sitting in right now was entirely packed. The faces of the mu'mineen, the faces of the Azadarane of Imam Hussain were there, draped in black, eager now to grieve for Imam Hussain. But 2 years later, on the very same minbar, the very same eve of the first of Muharram, I sit in front of you, in front of an empty hall. There's literally not a single soul sitting in front of me. Now, part of me wants to look around like there is people in front of me and maybe perhaps, ask people to move forward or announce some car that needs to be moved from the parking lot. But you're going to end up messaging my wife and saying, make sure that your husband takes his medication before the majlis every night. The reality is that for the next 10, 12 nights, I'll be speaking to you through a camera. And as challenging as it is for me to speak in front of a camera only, I know that it is equally as challenging to sit in your home right now and to listen to a majalis through a device, of whatever device you're using. But the point that I want to make in the beginning is that while this is very difficult, and let me make one point here very clear to to me first of all, and all of you who are listening. This is not the norm, obviously. This is not the way that Muharram should be commemorated. Nor do I want discussions, nor should I hear discussions after these Ayam-e-Azah of 2020 that maybe we should begin to think about an online Muharram even post-pandemic. The reality is that the communal aspect of the days of Muharram are essential in propagating the message of Imam Hussain. If we want to do what Imam Hussain left Medina to do, and that was Islah of the Ummah, reform of the Ummah, then that reform inside of our hearts requires us to be part of a social fabric, a social system. Inshallah, in my topic now, we'll look at the idea of collectivism, and move away from the idea that we are only an individual. So long as I'm comfortable inside my home, I'm still getting the message, albeit through a different avenue. This is great. I'm comfortable. I'm sitting in the comfort of my home. I don't need to commute, worry about parking, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm comfortable. But let's not get too comfortable, and let's not forget the fact that if we want to make any sort of movement towards Imam Hussein's mission, and that was to once again restore Deen Muhammadi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that asli organic religion that his grandfather, the Holy Prophet, spent 23 years in establishing, that requires the presence of each other. That requires us to, let's not, allow ourselves the conveniences that will, push this entire movement back. And I don't think anybody out there would rather be home right now than sitting, of course, in this building or whichever building you wish to sit in your respective cities. But the point is that let's not get too comfortable. Let's not attempt to say, you know what, this might be the new normal, even when this pandemic and this coronavirus is gone. There is an immense amount of importance laid in the Deen of Islam on the importance of social, communal gatherings. I remember growing up, in this very city, in a very active community in the east of this city. Part of the entire Muharram experience was to put on the black clothes and get in the car with my family and drive to the center and find parking and enter a fully packed masjid and sit with my friends or sit with my father and listen to a majlis and stand up and do the matam and then break some bread and have a cup of tea, do some social building and some community building. All of that was part and parcel of the grief and the gham. And I don't think we understood the beauty of it until this year. Now the silver lining is the fact that we must now take these beautiful masjids and bring them into our homes. Take the azakhanas inside of our masjid that we go and do our ziyarat of, and build the azakhana inside of our home. I remember in Masaib, in my days in Iran, we used to hear the beautiful Farsi Masaib and the Musibat Khuni, and sometimes they would say in Farsi and in English, take your hearts to Karbala, take your hearts to Bain al-Haramain, take your hearts to the Haram of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. This year, we have to bring Karbala into our hearts. Bring Bain al-Haramain into our homes. Bring the Haram of Imam Hussain now into our hearts and our families. So I ask you, if you are a family right now who has those same adab and etiquettes, and you know me, I have spoken about the etiquettes of Muharram for the past few years. I spend this first night of Muharram talking about istiqbal of Muharram, welcoming Muharram, preparing for Muharram, being ready for Muharram, and talking about what the proper etiquette is. From the way you dress to the way you enter, the way you sit, all of that. That doesn't stop, even if you are right now inside of your home. So if that means that an hour before you're about to leave for the majlis in the evening, you're used to going upstairs and ironing your black clothes and putting your black clothes on and getting into the car, let's do the exact same thing this year as well. Let's go upstairs, let's iron our black clothes, put them on, and come downstairs and sit in some common living area and either watch the majlis on the TV or device or whatever the case may be. If you've always been adamant about sitting on the farsh and the carpet during a majlis of Imam Hussain, then make sure that in the comfort of your home, you're not reclining on a lazy boy or lying down on a sofa, or have your feet out, let's say, facing the TV. Let's have the same etiquette of sitting cross-legged in front of the television in the same etiquette and adab. If you're somebody who stands up for matam and makes sure that you or your father or you or your mother or whoever are right now in the first line of matam, then when the noha comes on after me, stand up as a family now, line up as a family now and do matam. If you are adamant that a majlis is not complete without a cup of tea, then make that pot of chai and that pot of tea and sit as a family and serve your tea. On the flip side, look at the amount of effort being put in by all the various centers across the globe really to ensure that this azadari doesn't stop. The doors are closed, the hearts are open. You've heard all of the statements 1,000 times. But there's a silver lining to everything. And this is our opportunity to send a very clear message to Bi Fatima and to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, that your shahadat wasn't done in vain, nor am I dependent on the four walls. And I get it, I'm not naive. The faza, the sama, the environment, you know, the atmosphere of a masjid, of your home center, of your home community, of grieving with your family and friends is extremely important. And it adds to the grief and the gham. Of course, when you cry collectively, tears roll down a little bit easier. I get it. I understand it. And that's precisely why, you know, the Jamaat asked me to come and sit on this minbar to talk in front of an empty hall. That maybe, just maybe, those of you who are at home, you know, may not feel like it's a completely different Muharram. At least he's on our minbar, in our center, in our community. It feels like, okay, you know what? People are there, but I just couldn't make it to the program tonight. But this talk about, you know, what's going to happen to Azadari? Nothing's going to happen to Azadari. Azadari has been through so much more, worse than this. It's prevailed. This is the moment where we present ourselves to Sayyidah Fatima, that we are that nation your father promised, that we, no matter what, under what circumstance, no matter what happens, will never ever stop grieving for your son. May not be in the most ideal situation, but it will be in a situation where no matter what, we are going to preserve this Azadari. It's gone through a lot. From Mutawakkil to Saddam to so many. It's gone through so many. It has now powered through individuals infiltrating this system of Azadari for nothing but fame and fortune. Infiltrating this Azadari with what? With fabricated traditions to lower the grief and gham and sacrifice that Imam Hussain made on the day of Ashura. This is nothing new to us as Shias. Our generation that preceded us, their generation before that, they worked very hard to do what? To preserve this Azadari. They were individuals that embraced, and I'm going to use the word embrace themselves as custodians of this Azadari, as protectors of this Azadari, as preservers of this Azadari. This Azadari is yours as a generation. Preserve it, protect it, embrace it, grow it, and then give it to the next generation. Majority of us right now listening to me come from an immigrant family who migrated here God knows how long ago, 30, 40 years ago, some families. They didn't have money for a car or for annual trips or for a big home, but one thing they did have money for was to build Hussainiyas. Rent small little units and convert that into an Azakhana. If nothing else, then remove the furniture, you know, lay down the white sheets, call whoever you knew, in my home now, you're here, Ya Hussain. I don't have money to take my family out for dinner every single night, but for the tabarruk of Imam Hussain, I have enough money. That generation of our parents did that, and their parents did the same. Now it's up to us now to take this Azadari and be custodians of it, preservers of it, protectors of it, propagators of it. And yes, as much as I would love to be speaking to hundreds of people right now in this beautiful masjid, I'm not. It doesn't mean that the Azadari stops. We are not here in 2020 in this COVID-19 Muharram to somehow, preserve Azadari or give Azadari life. Azadari preserves us. Azadari gives us life. It's our source of identity. It's our source of salvation. It's our source of pride. It doesn't need us. On top of that, don't worry, our Hussain who's in Ghaibat right now, the avenger of the blood of Karbala, as long as he is here in this universe, this Azadari will remain. He is there to protect this system. Above him is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All you and I have to do is ensure that while the atmosphere is a little bit different this year for our Azadari, the ruh and the spirit of Azadari shouldn't leave our hearts. Look, when we drive to the masjid, we don't drive, leaving our hearts here, then picking up our hearts when we get here. No, we bring our heart here, we take our heart back. That same heart now is with you right now, sitting in your living room, sitting in your bedroom, watching me, let's say, on your TV or your devices. That same heart cries for Hussein, whether you sit in front of me or you sit in your living room. But this is a moment for us. This is a moment for us to convert our homes into azakhanas of today. That's the silver lining. To now allow my child to contribute to this azadari by maybe perhaps reciting, du'a tawassul, or two lines of a salam, or some English poetry, whatever the case may be. Usually in a massive community like this, they wouldn't have the courage to be on stage reciting. But now they can write themselves on the list of those people that, I read some couplets and some poetry about. But azadari is not going anywhere. There are centers, there are people, there are teams that are using every possible tool of technology today to somehow bring the highest form of azadari to all of you. Sound and AV and video and transitions and recordings from every corner of the globe. This is our time now to step up. This is what this is our test as our generation. Our preceding generation had their test. This is our test. To what? To be custodians of this azadari. To see, is our azadari conditional? Yes, it doesn't feel the same. I get it. But we do our best to create that atmosphere to the best of our ability. Let the protector of azadari do his job. We're not here to save azadari, it's here to save us. And finally,